some good news finally in the UK. From the January next year, there will be no VAT whatsoever on women's sanitary products. So what that means is that that sanitary products, tampons, are now no longer classed as a luxury item in the UK. Yes, I know. For something to have VAT on it, it needs to be classed as a luxury. And that's what they were classing tampons as. The VAT, for those of you who don't know, value-added tax, used to be called purchase tax. It came in at the end, round about 1940 in World War II. I think it was meant to be a temporary tax. And it was there, it was meant to deter waste of raw materials during the war. And then the purchase tax was replaced when we joined the EEC in the 70s, what was 73, with a flat 10% tax on all luxury goods. And it went down to 8% shortly after that. So that's why we pay VAT, and it's gone up incrementally through, various administrations since then, until in 2011 the Tories put it up to 20%. Did it go up or down to 20%? I can't remember from then. I think they put it up to 20%. I think it was at 17.5%. And it stayed there since. Critics of the VAT system, of which I am one, think it's an unfair tax. It's an indirect tax for a start. We don't actually pay it directly. The stores pay it on our behalf. They take it off us. It's there, and it's in with the price of our goods that we buy. But if you actually look at that, and because it's a flat rate, that means that the poor, the poorest among us, pay the highest percentage of their incomes in VAT. The rich argue that, yeah, but we pay more than VAT than everybody, but, it's just a lesser percentage of their incomes. But it's basically unfair, critics say. But then there are other problems with the VAT system as well, because rich people will say, yeah, but, we pay more VAT into the system on a whole. But as is usual with rich people, it's pretty much a choice, taxes. For instance, you may remember this from a few years ago. Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton avoided tax on his £16.5 million luxury jet. According to the Paradise Papers documents, they show a 3.3 million VAT refund was given to him after the Bombardier Challenger 605 was imported into the Isle of Man in 2013. Now, obviously, a poor person wouldn't be able to do that. A poor person who's buying a pair of trainers that he has to have a 20%, he has to pay 20% VAT on. He can't import that through the Isle of Man. He can't do the things that the rich people do to avoid paying their due tax. You see the point I'm making here. It's not fair. It's not fair. There's no choice for the poor and middle class. They have to pay the VAT. When you get to the super rich, it's a choice. It's the same with income tax as well. If you look at the system, and the VAT system is stupid. It really is stupid. There's no rhyme or reason as to what has got VAT on and what hasn't. Of course, you'll remember in the 80s there was, the big question, wasn't it? Is the Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? Well, I can tell you, it's a cake. And the reason it's a cake is there's no VAT on it. There's no VAT on cakes, but there is on biscuits. And McVitie's had to prove in a court of law. They had to prove that they were a cake. And they proved it by saying, look, when cakes go stale, they go hard, which Jaffa cakes do, and biscuits go soft. And that's how they proved it. And that's why there's no VAT on Jaffa cakes, or at least there wasn't. So the system's screwed. I mean, why are biscuits classed as a luxury item, but cakes not? I'm not sure whether it is 100% like that. It might have changed since that court case in the 80s, but I'm sure you remember it. But VAT is just as tricky when it comes to pets. Pet food sold as such is standard rated, anything canned or packaged and prepared as pet food. But loose produce, bagged up when bought, does not meet these tests and therefore is not VATable. Food for working dogs is also zero rated unless it's biscuits or meal. There's no rhyme or reason to this VAT. They just make it up as they go along. Oh, there's VAT on that, there's VAT on... And it's been tinkered with so much. It makes no sense whatsoever to keep it. Especially when you look at some of the things that don't have VAT on them at all. And I'm thinking mostly here, financial services. There's no VAT on financial services. Remember, VAT is a tax that, you know, it's on companies to basically say, hey, you have to pay that on every transaction as a sort of thank you for operating within the realm of our government and what our current government presides over. Why not financial services if that's the case? Why not? Why have financial services VAT free? The total UK turnover generated by financial services by the financial service industries increased from 2.4 trillion to 2.6 trillion, an increase of 224.8 billion in 2017. So it's a huge market. If you just put a 1% tax on that, a 1%, just 1%. 1% VAT on financial services on the people, you know, who crashed the economy 10 years ago and have made out like bandits ever since. Meanwhile, you know, 200,000 people have died from austerity cuts to pay for those bankers' mistakes. I say mistakes. It's not a mistake. The jack, they'd gone away with it and they knew they could. That's why they've been doing it ever since then. No, there were no repercussions. But if you just put a 1% tax on those financial services, you could scrap VAT altogether. We'd pay for it. Almost exactly, actually. And you look at 137 billion, I think it is, that VAT gets. With that in mind, with this in mind, maybe scrapping the tampon tax, maybe that should be taken a little further. Or as I said in my tweet, there shouldn't be VAT on anything, period. That's comedy genius. I don't care what anybody says. That's comedy genius. 10 likes, look. Just 10 likes that got. Comedy genius and he got 10 likes. My talents are wasted on the 5,000 Russian bots that follow me on Twitter. At Gordon Dimmack, please give me a follow. My genius needs some oxygen.